Sure. So we, as you said, we started in November of 1999. And I'm going to tell a little bit about the genesis of the company. But today we're an enterprise software company. We are a SaaS company, 100% SaaS, never done anything different. We sell a suite of products called a talent management suite. And these are multiple products that we say do things to help employees realize their potential. It helps a company engage their people. So these are things like learning management, things like performance management, goal management, succession management, compensation management, recruitment management, and it goes on and on and on. I tend to boil it down to these are front-end, employee-facing productivity tools and engagement tools that mostly people in HR use to attract and retain and train and motivate all of your talent.
In just some rough numbers on the company, market cap, about $1.5 billion.
Sure, right now about $1.5 billion.
And revenue, at least the last one announced?
The midpoint of the guide this year is about $429 million.
So, I mean, a great success story. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience and others who are interested and probably getting a lot of information today. But if you could leave them with 3 or 4 thoughts, of sort of, if you remember nothing else today, at least from a successful founder and still working executive at LA's most successful recurring revenue company, what would that be?
Yeah, sure. So by show of hands, who here has been to other sessions so far today? Right, many of you. And I have been an audience member at I don't know how many conferences, and it's late in the afternoon, and you got a guy up here who's just talking, and it's a little monotone, and you're checking your email, and it's going to be a half hour, and studies have proven you will remember virtually nothing that I say.
Should we just stop?
So we'll just stop there.
Okay.
So what I like to do is I like to boil it down. I like to boil it down into just like 1, 2, 3, or 4 little snippets that everybody can say, wow, I remember what that guy said. I remember that stupid story he told. And so, well, sorry about that. The first one is, these are sort of the Perry's, 4 little notes on what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. And the first one is you have to be a little crazy and you have to have a lot of grit. So I tell a story that it's like climbing Mount Everest. I don't care if you are an absolute fan of mountain climbing, rock climbing, if you're the fittest guy. It's going to be kind of tough for you to climb Mount Everest. And it is going to take some determination and some grit beyond anything you've ever conceived. And I would venture to say, if you've ever met anybody that's gone to Mount Everest, they are a little crazy. So that's the first one, a little crazy and a lot of grit. The second thing that I would say it takes to be successful is culture. And Culture's very interesting. I used to have discussions with Adam Miller, our CEO, and my partner about how we would shape the culture of Cornerstone. And there's sort of 2 camps. There's this culture by default, and then there's culture by design. And believe it or not, I think it mostly takes culture by design, but I wouldn't give up on culture by default because you want it to be a little bit natural. So when we started the company, we had this mission to improve access to education on a global basis. That was our mission statement.
Did you write that out? Did you say, guys, we're going to...
We wrote it out. We wrote it out. It was on the top of a mountain in Malibu. It was the first day we started the company. We got, we had all the MBA books out. Well, what do? You need a mission statement. You need a culture. And so we wrote it out. And over the years, what we developed was a little bit of a mantra about our culture and the types of people that we wanted to work at Cornerstone. And so that went to hiring smart, cool, dependable people. Smart, cool, dependable people. And everybody got kind of bugged by the middle, cool. And it was like, really, cool? Well, we had a whole different definition of cool. Cool was somebody that you could engage in a conversation with. Cool was somebody that had passion. Cool was somebody that, you wanted to hang out and have a beer with. Cool was somebody who could be a team player. And to this day, we have close to 1,700 employees. We still, I think it's on our website, we still go by that mantra.
It's sort of the transcontinental flight test, right? So someone you wouldn't mind sitting next to on an airplane. But how do you guys rank that? I want to get back to your list, but
so that's two so far,
that's two.
Right?
But on that, how do you weight that versus domain experience? If someone comes in with all this experience, are you a best available athlete kind of thing? Like, give me...
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a tricky one. The culture of Cornerstone has really always been about hiring for potential rather than competence. When you hire smart people that are high potential, if you give them the right stimulation and the right job and they're really engaged, they're going to figure it out. And let's be honest, some of the things that we do in technology every day, there's not a lot of people out there that know how to do it and don't have the exact domain expertise. So, number three, to be successful, I think you have to be really, really frugal with your money. And I think that it goes beyond what everybody really can conceive. So we started Cornerstone, and I'm going to tell this whole story over the course of our chat, but we started Cornerstone in November of 1999. Does anybody know what happened in May of 2000?
I unfortunately lived through it.
Okay. So that was the first tough time. We raised a little bit of money, we bootstrapped, and then we got our first 3 customers.
What was a little bit of money? What back then?
You know, we raised a couple of $1 million in convertible debt from family and friends and old bosses. Okay. And we were able to survive that bust, if you will. And we created a product, we got our first 3 customers, and our first 3 customers were located in the Twin Towers in what year? And so I showed up to Adam and I said, I think we got to lay everybody off. We're going out of business. He said, no, we're going to hire into this. I was like, okay, crazy guy. And we did. And we survived that. We raised our first round of institutional venture capital in May of 2007. Anybody know what happened right after that?
Are you guys fundraising?
No. Thank God. So we raised that first round of institutional venture capital in May of 2007. And I think Sequoia came out with that deck with the skull and the crossbones. And they were like, every VC is going out of business. The LPs are not going to make their funding calls. And so we were kind of starting to crush it at that point. And we went to our VC. It was Bessemer. This is a famous story. And we said, look, it's now 2008, and we're going to need some more money in 2009, and we're wondering if we can get some more money. And they said, you know what, you guys are doing so well, you can raise capital from outside. We're going to save our capital for all the crappy companies that can't. We were like, we're flattered. So we actually were forced to go out to the market, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to us because we brought on another investor, Meritech Capital Partners, and with those 2 institutional venture firms, we really got elevated to the next level.
What was the rough revenue back then when you were?
God, $30 million, something like that, $25 million. So
you're 10x over that now.
Yeah.
So Meritech took that chance in 2009.
15, 20x, yeah. So we raised that round of financing, believe it or not, in 2009 at a static valuation to 2007, and that is a very good lesson to maybe what is going to be happening in the current marketplace with companies that have raised money, let's say in 2015, that are going to need capital in 2016 and 17, and I'm sure you've been talking about that in other sessions today. And then we were a rocket ship, and we got ready to go public, and we were on the road in 2011, and sure enough, the road show was going great. We were 20 times oversubscribed after the first 3 days, And here comes the tsunami wave in Japan rolling inland right during our roadshow. And if everybody remembers what was happening to the stock market then, the Nikkei would go down, I think, like 1,000 or 3,000, something like that, and the Dow would go down 300 or 400 every single day. And you're on the phone with Goldman, and they say, well, the IPO window's been open for the last year and a half, but it might have closed yesterday. And so we survived that. The net of it is you have to have a lot of staying power, and you can only survive all of those things, obviously, if you have grit, but if you're very, very frugal and you don't need capital. So raise it when you can, not when you need it. I tell one other famous story about how frugal we were at Cornerstone in the early days. We were really, really tight, and I was unhappy with the spend on paper towels in the kitchen. So I cut the people off. I cut them off. I said, no more paper towels. Figure it out. Bring a dish towel from home. No more paper towels.
My son would fit in very well there.
And they got clever on me because they started to use the coffee filters to dry their hands. Guess what I cut off next? No more coffee filters. So it really is true. You have to be very, very frugal. So that's number 3. And I think number 4 is actually pretty intuitive, but I'm going to tell it in a little bit of detail. And that is, it's really all about the customer and it being sticky. It's really all about the customer. Because if you don't focus on your software and it's not really, really sticky, I don't know what else you got. And so one of the things that we did, we sold to huge, huge companies right off the bat, right? Our first 3 customers were Washington Mutual Bank and Smith Barney and Aon. They had like 58,000 employees. Remember, our software sits on the desktop of every single employee, right? We were this like little shitty company from Santa Monica that was selling like this behemoth. And this was before SaaS. It was before ASP. It was before ASP. It was like just when the internet was blowing up in 99 and 2000. And we didn't know how to make software. We knew how to make websites. And we would go to these meetings, and they were used to seeing client-server software. So they'd say, well, can you make it do this? And then, the client-server, company would get back to them in what? 6 months? And so what we started to do was we started to show the customers the power of the cloud, the power of software as a service. And they'd say, can you make the software do this? And we'd say, sure, hold on a second. And get on the cell phone to the developer from Seattle to Santa Monica. And the developer would code it up inside of, 15 minutes. And then, boom, it would show up on the screen, and the customer realized that this was something new and special. But it wasn't just that we could update the software and give them their feature and function. It was that we were into it, and that's who we wanted to be. We knew that the customer had to be first in that respect, and so we were willing to do whatever they said. And I think when you fast forward, it's been a little over 16 years now, our annual dollar retention rate, which we've been keeping track of since the inception of the company, which does not include upsells, it actually increased in 2015. It's been running at about 95% since inception. And it went up from about 94.7% to 95.4%, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when your company is continuing to scale, the fact that your annual dollar retention rate is increasing it's a pretty big deal. And so, that can segue into a few other things and talking about, really how you want to look at your business and really looking at metrics, if you will.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So in 1999, I was investing in some software companies, and it wasn't clear. It was pre-ASP. It was pre-cloud. We weren't talking about that stuff, and it was one-time license model, pay $1 million or $10 million. Whatever. You guys didn't do that. So how did you have the foresight to do that, and what pressures did that put on you? Because that's a new business model. You weren't getting the money up front. How'd you guys, and sort of how'd you get pricing? I mean, you guys were pioneers in that sense.
I'd like to say it was really, really analytic and strategic, but it had some dumb luck. Look, one of the other things that everybody says is it does take some luck to be successful. And so, knock on wood, we had some of that, and it continues. I think what we did was we realized that the client-server environment was really it was a business model that people wanted out of, right? It wasn't so clear as to what it would become, but it was getting pretty clear that clients of client-server companies were pretty unhappy, right? And they spent a lot of money, it took a lot of time, they didn't have the functionality they wanted.
Maintenance fees every
Maintenance
year.
fees, the whole thing. And so what we did was we just figured out how to really, really have a thin cost structure. And our first couple of customers, we had $1 per user per month. And that was it. Now it's morphed today to where when you price a big deal, it's really not dollars per user per month. I mean, it can kind of, equate into that. But it's really about, we'll call it a maximum number of users for a certain amount of money every single year. And, you're not changing the billing every single month. They're just going to buy, $500,000 a year for a maximum of 10,000 users. So what it did was we had very, very large customers. We got into long-term contracts with them, and we knew roughly how many users they were going to have. And so it gave us really, really good visibility into our operating model and our profit model. And so that's one of the last things that I would stress is that from a very, very early stage, we knew how much money we were going to bill every single month. And so we could kind of be judicious in what we were going to spend and not get out over our proverbial ski tips. And what I would say is for everybody that's starting a company or just looking at a business, there's the traditional metrics of revenue and bookings and retention rate, all these kinds of things. But we invented a new metric for ourselves way back when.
Which was what?
It's called operating profit. And it was really simple. We said, well, think about it like your checkbook. You have a certain amount that goes in and a certain amount that comes out. And the part that goes out can't be really more than the part that comes in, shy of some receivables financing, right? Assume you have a DSO of 0, maybe, if you really have good gold standard customers. And what we were able to do is look at that operating profit metric on an annual basis and really, really be disciplined about the investments we would continue to make for growth.
Let me ask you about your founders. So it is unusual to have 3 founders start a company and stay with it through the early years, which requires a certain amount of craziness and fires putting out and whatever, through the growth years, through an IPO, even to today, right, 16, 17 years later. How do you manage that? Did you expect to do that when you started? Is it a unique type of connection you guys had, and how'd you pull that off?
Well, I thought we would be done, and we would have. Remember, we started in 1999 at the heyday of the internet, and I thought it would be like 18 months to 3 years, and we would have sold the company for $22 billion right next to Pets.com. That didn't happen. So here's what I would say. It does take a very, very special chemistry. I call it the yin and the yang. I never give anybody the impression that it was all roses every single year at all times. But through all of the arguments, I think what happens is you come back to a place of, number one, mutual respect, and number two, having a mutual goal. And if you can get back to that mutual respect and the mutual goal after you're having a down cycle, then you can survive those. And I think that, I'm an accountant, so I'm not a very, I like everything organized and I like everything defined and not really astrological, but the stars kind of aligned in that respect for us. And so,
would you guys do things though, like would you do offsites? Would you bring in executive coaches, and how would you have to do things like that?
Yes,
you recommend things like that?
Yeah, so all of that stuff. It's one of Adam's favorite things is to have the anniversary party. So on November 8th of every single year, we get the whole company together. Now it's getting pretty big, so it costs a lot of money. And we go and we have lots of meetings and celebrate. And
you have velvet towels with plush,
yes.
leopard skin towels.
Exactly. Silk. So we would have this anniversary party, and believe it or not, it became kind of another institution in the culture. And so people, they loved it, they talked about it, and then they couldn't wait for it, and then, it was written about, and when you'd hire somebody, they're like, when's the anniversary party? And so there's all the happy hours and all that kind of stuff, management offsites. Yes, we take an offsite every year with the management team for, let's call it 3 days, and we go out to the mountains and try to all get together and really make sure that we're doing things outside of the office. All that's absolutely necessary. I think that that's the way that you maintain the common goal and the common respect. But I think when you go into these partnerships, you go into it and you figure that out beforehand.
So all that said, you are retiring. You announced a couple weeks ago.
I did.
After a long run here. So
I did.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
What are you going to miss the most? What are you going to miss the least?
So what am I going to miss the most? I think I'll miss a lot of the employees. I think I will miss...
Not all the employees.
I thought I said a lot. I said a lot,
okay,
not all.
You said a lot.
I said a lot. I will miss a lot of the employees, not all. I will miss my employees, specifically in my department. I think we've done some really, really cool things. Cornerstone is a very, very complex organization. It's RevRec for software as a service, and we sell to the world's largest organizations. We sell in 35 countries or something like that all over the world. We have a very complex multinational structure. It's been a really, really challenging but special accomplishment in that respect of the climb up Mount Everest. I'll miss some of the clients. Some of the clients, you do get a tremendous amount of satisfaction that you're helping their business. You're making a real difference in their business. I give an example that when a client comes to us and let's say they have 10,000 employees and they spend, pick your industry, retail, healthcare, whatever it is, and their average salary per employee is $30,000 or $40,000, $50,000. $10,000 at $50,000 a year is $500 million a year in payroll. And we can influence that $500 million in payroll for just a few $100,000 a year. And you do feel pretty special about that. I will not miss some clients, for sure.
Do you guys ever fire a client? Not renew for reasons?
No, I would say we would never do that. We might not call you back so much.
Yeah.
But no, there's very few clients that we haven't been able to make happy.
So we're down to a couple minutes left. Do you want to take Q&A?
Why don't we do just a couple of questions?
Okay, sure. Any questions from the crowd? Right there, sure.
Did you think you solved with your first sale for the client?
I'm sorry, what problem did we solve with our first sale?
Sorry, for your first client, what was the problem you felt you were solving for them, and what did they feel that you were solving for them?
Oh, sure. So, great question. It's right out of the, standard VC, what problem are you solving? And you got to have one. You got to have a lot of them.
But
yeah. So
you want the tourniquet. You need the tourniquet, not the aspirin, right? So what
Yes.
was the tourniquet? When was it? Where was the tourniquet needed for your first product?
Yeah, I think that when you dial the clock back to 2000, I think there was a lot of training that was taking place in the classroom. And it was very, very high cost. And it took people out of the workplace. There still are, universities at very, very large corporations in the U.S. just to handle the training efforts of all the employees, right? You get a big company with 50, 60,000 employees up to a couple 100,000 employees. They have McDonald's University, Verizon University. And so automating a lot of that training was a huge cost savings, and it actually got more people trained. And so you can argue that the ROI on the efforts were more than just the cost savings. It was, hey, look, now instead of having 2/3 compliance, we have 99% compliance.
One more question? Right back here.
Gary, so a lot of the product differentiates itself because it's all built at home in Santa Monica. So in the last year, you've made acquisitions. Maybe you can share a little bit about the acquisition strategy going forward, as well a little bit. You have like a little venture incubator. Maybe you can share something about that.
Sure. So we have built 100% of the code base from the ground up since day one. Right in Santa Monica, it is a huge differentiator of the company versus all of the competitors. We are the only integrated organic talent management suite in the world. We bought 2 companies since we went public. The first one was a solution for the lower end of the market, the SMB market. We call it our Growth Edition product. It really only services customers with, let's say, less than about 400 employees. It's a totally different product than our corporate product. We, for many, many years, tried to take the corporate...
Sold in different channels?
All different size customers, different channels, the whole thing. For many, many years, we tried to take this corporate product and kind of dummy it down for that SMB market. Didn't work. And so what we realized was we needed a totally different approach, and we acquired a company to go after that. The second company that we bought this was about December of 2014, was a company that was doing big data and analytics. And it was really a company that had developed a machine learning technology to take massive amounts of data and then predict things from it, correlate things from it. And so they were doing it more on the recruiting side with selection. So think about companies that have to hire large quantities of workers. They're getting massive numbers of resumes. They want to automatically, and from a computer standpoint, parse that information out and then ram that through really artificial intelligence to say, interview that one. We bought that company, and we just took their technology and applied it to everything we already did. And so we really haven't changed that organic nature of our suite. I would really encourage people to focus on that. And for our innovation fund, our incubator, we do have a little bit of space in our 4th floor in Santa Monica, and we give companies money and office space, companies that have something to do with what we do, talent management. So anything tangential to it. We have about 3 companies in there right now. They have anything to do with, from gamification for hiring software developers to high volume recruiting for retail.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was excellent.
Thank you.